Yeah, yo, I'm internationally known on the microphone. I got it all, but I really need a wife at home. And I don't really like the zone, never spend the night alone.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Well, you couldn't make any of this up, could you? The saga continues. That's what happens when the lunatics are out of the asylum saying that sane people need to be educated and mad people need to rule the roost. Well, without further ado, let me plunge in with what Nancy Jackson has to say. Lots of people are calling out the connection between Diddy and Meghan's friend Oprah. Also, cryptic comments about a certain prince at Diddy's parties. Thoughts? Well, I'm going to expand on that question. I'm going to observe that you couldn't make any of this up, could you? Meghan and Harry's people have come out fighting. Meghan is the most wonderful boss that God has ever put on this earth. We have to know it's true because one or two employees have said it. And magazines like People, renowned for their absolutely incisive investigative reporting, are commenting and faithfully cutting and pasting. Oh, sorry. My mouth slipped. They are reporting accurately the press releases put out to confirm that Megsy Baby is the most wonderful, absolutely wonderful employer who ever existed. Well, she's certainly trying to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. But I am told by a friend of mine in Hollywood that that is not possible because Megsy Baby's name is M-U-D. Mud. Of course, if somebody thinks they can make money by converting the mud into manure and selling it as if it were pigs with lipstick, they will do so. But, sorry, baby Megsy. Oh, sorry. It's not going to wash. Nobody of any consequence in Hollywood believes a word of the cover story that you are putting out. They believe the cover story of a different sort that the Hollywood Reporter put out. Now, as for Harry being at P. Diddy's parties, well, he's been mentioned already in court documents. Is he nervous? Well, he's certainly been behaving as if he's very nervous in New York. But I'm not sure that that has a thing to do with P. Diddy. First of all, many other people were at P. Diddy's parties. I think Oprah and her special friend Gail would have been to those parties. But lots of people will have been. So I think there were two tiers to the party. One tier was respectable, pseudo-respectable, and the other was, well, let's just have fun. Let's roast a chicken. We might even get a proposal if we roast a chicken. think where P. Diddy's concerned, what is more interesting is how he was arrested and thrown into the clink. That's what I find more interesting. Jeffrey Epstein thought he was impervious, and he ended up being chucked into the clink, notwithstanding having such famous friends as the former President Bill Clinton. He was still chucked into the clink. And P. Diddy, he looks as if he's going to have a very long stay as a guest of Uncle Sam. Let's see how that one works out. But my understanding is that Harry is living on his nerves and that he is not in very good shape and that he wavers from one state to another. Now, he and Meghan are under severe pressure, and anybody who thinks anything to the contrary need to get their head examined. Oh, he is supposed to have inherited a few million from Granny, not Granny Elizabeth II, Granny Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. That's not going to go very far, not at the rate they spend money. I think at the moment, though, the financial pressure has eased slightly, but the reputational pressure is still there. And there are the pressures within the marriage. So, but what I've found really interesting is his appearances and how churlish he has been presenting himself. You know, he just sits down like a blob and doesn't even pretend to be a gentleman when ladies approach him. I wonder what his parents would say about that. Sorry. Also, he's jumped on his favorite bandwagon. At the 2024 Clinton Global Initiative event, he said, "Some say kids will be kids, and well, that may well be true. Kids may get into trouble. I know a thing or two about that. Grass is good. But our kids, and now wait for it, but our kids are being targeted. The harmful effects of social media are made by design. These platforms are designed to create addiction. Young people are kept there by mindless, endless, numbing, scrolling, being force-fed content that no child should ever be exposed to." If Harry had actually gone into the 12-step program, which he really needs to, he would understand that, first of all, very few addictions are imposed upon people. People are either addictive personalities or they aren't. Now, some people can be addicted to one thing and not another. Some people, like Harry, seem to be addicted to everything, chief of which is stupidity. But he's back on his hobby horse about controlling the internet, shutting down social media. So he of all people, and people of his ilk, will be able to tell you and me and everybody else what we should be looking at and listening to. If children are being targeted, what are their parents doing about it? Their parents can take away the devices. Their parents can control access to the devices. Since when did anybody with 2 grains of sense in their head think that all control should be relegated to the government, and that the government, and of course people like Harry, should be able to tell you and me and everybody else what we should be looking at, what we should be thinking even? Delusional. The guy is totally delusional. And evidently, the behavior behind the scenes is very patchy. Oh, poor Harry. I do wish Harry would seek help. He really needs it. Betty Garcia says, you would think that Harry would not want his children to suffer the consequences and shame of questionable birth circumstances after what he went through with the James Hewitt scandal hanging over his life. Betty Garcia, very well observed. He even mentions it in his book, Spare Me. You would have thought so, but clearly not, because clearly his empathy doesn't extend beyond himself to his 2 children. Of course, there's also the fact that when you find yourself in a bind that you sort of have fallen into, trying to be supportive and loving and being convinced that you should be doing things that you should know you shouldn't be doing. But since you're so in love that you're going, because the stars have all aligned, and so you're going to be educated and informed and led like a sheep to the slaughter. Claro says, addressing him, he grew up with a question over his legitimacy. So why allow this to happen to his children, having expressed how much it upset him? This makes me think there is something to hide. Well, that would be a very reasonable conclusion to come to. I can think of 1 or 2 other reasons, most of which lead back to that. So, and now, addressing her, knowing how awful it was for him growing up with this question hanging over him. 1, it is a bad way to treat children. 2, it is a bad way to treat your husband. Knocks recreate their partner's fears and traumas. Narcissists use everything that's available. Clay is clay. Clay is used to sculpt something of beauty, something of horror. It is their method, their artistry. Clay is clay. Clay is neither good nor bad. Clay is, as far as narcissists are concerned, clay is representative of life. And just as how with clay or with dollar bills, all dollar bills are green, and therefore Nothing bad about dollar bills because they're all green, irrespective of their denomination. It's the same with good and bad. It's the same with whatever material is available in terms of how they can use the clay to sculpt the scenario that they wish to sculpt. And I think it is the height of irresponsibility and callousness to create a situation where your children are inevitably going to be subjected to unnecessary uncertainty and to scrutiny that they should not have exist. Actually, scrutiny is a bad word. Curiosity is a better word. Now, I know all about having been brought up to be a curio. As I used to say, people seem to think that my personal life is something that they can just avail themselves of, and that my feelings and my experiences are like a piece of meat in a butcher's shop, displayed for the delectation of all and the purchase of some. They're doing that. They're doing that to their children. And their children are going to be old enough, soon enough, to suffer. I think it is appalling. Of course, their solution would be that everybody should be shut up and nobody should ask a question because they are who they are, and that means they should be able to do whatever they want, and how dare you and I and any other of the little people question them. Arrogance of that nature is truly something else again. And yes, you're right, it's a bad way to treat both children and husband. But let's not forget, husband is 50% of the marital team. So husband's also an adult. So husband can actually or should be able to fend for himself. And if he can't, he should learn to do so. Sorry, that's the reality. Linda's Musings says, Harry looked in his element, in my opinion, without the claw-like breath for a minute, defrosting after being controlled and frozen. IMOL may be wrong, but I think a little light is reaching his mind. Wild things going on. I've read that out because it has an element of truth. My understanding is that, yes, there are flickers of light in that darkened house that's called Harry's brain. So, yeah. Did he look in his element? Well, according to some people, he looked as if he was higher than a kite. And according to other people, he was very edgy and very nervous and very ill at ease. Then he would lapse into apparent ease. So it's quite disconcerting for people to have observed that 1 minute he's very disconcerted and the next he's anything but. I don't know. My mood doesn't change that rapidly. And I would have no idea why people's moods would change so rapidly. Michelle Law says, Hello everyone. IRS to all Americans. I've written to my senators, nothing. IRS Form 3949A to report tax law violations. God bless. Love it. Michelle Law, you seem to be a law unto yourself. And all you Americans who want to use a stamp, IRS Form 3949A is what you use to report tax violations, especially when they are so flagrant as to be reported in the press. Let's wait and see if anything happens. It will have to be an awful lot of you to do it, to get anything to happen. But you know, Uncle Sam is a very greedy puppy, and Uncle Sam needs his food, and maybe Uncle Sam is going to wait for the right moment. After all, the Spanish authorities waited for the right moment before they pounced on the Duke and Duchess of Palma de Mallorca. She's now still Infanta Cristina, but he was stripped, she was stripped of the dukedom, and so he ceased to be the Duke of Palma de Mallorca and ended up in prison, poor darling. My heart bleeds for him, bleeds. Joe Vickers says, Catherine, Princess of Wales, is sick and absent from public life. But when she makes an appearance, it's headline news worldwide. Is Meghan sick and absent in the hopes that she will be worldwide headline news when she reappears? Doubtless in a car park. Jeff? Carl? Don't I look hot? Get me as a sachet in that car park. I guess People magazine will print something, but worldwide media, no way. Sorry, Megsy baby, it ain't gonna happen. Joe Vickers, thank you for saying in different words what I completely agree with and the message I have been trying to deliver recently, which is that Meghan and Harry's popularity has peaked. Meghan particularly is of little and no interest except as ye old curiosity in ye old curiosity shop. Harry still has the benefit of being a king's son. So, short of doing something truly bizarre that is going to render him totally unacceptable, whether he's popular or not, there is always going to be a degree of desirability and protection afforded him. Because even if the royal family doesn't want him to be entertained, there are people low enough down in the totem pole, such as Dr. Tedros from the World Health Organization, who will think, oh, well, Prince Harry, he's a prince, it's prestigious, we'll have him along. That's how the upper reaches of the elite internationally works, and that's how the upper elite has always worked. That's why the Duke and Duchess of Windsor also remained very desirable as a couple. Plus, they behaved much better than Harry and Meghan have behaved. But Meghan is a pariah. She can get as many people as she wants to assert how wonderful she is. She's a pariah. And being sick, and she's going to make a splash, I think she better be careful that she doesn't dive into an empty pool. She might find that the cement does serious damage, figuratively speaking. Eshy Streak says, I am no fan of Harry and Meghan, but to spread information that is private is unacceptable. I don't care who the people are that the information is about. But if Thomas Markle Jr. did say what people say he said, then he is breaking a confidence and invading Meghan's privacy. He has opened himself up for a lawsuit. It's always advisable to keep family secrets secret and not use them as grift for the rumour mill. It's surprising what can motivate a person to say something that they may believe is correct or may know is just a joke, but is in actual fact being deliberately spiteful. We were furious when people were spreading nonsense about the Princess of Wales. Yet people are acting as if we should know every private detail about another person. I find it offensive. Well, I hear what you're saying, but I'm afraid I think that you've actually missed a very important point or two. First of all, every single royal baby that is born is supposed to have its birth attested to, failing which the citizens of the country have an absolute right to question it. No royal woman who is giving birth to a child has the right to expect privacy that somebody who is giving birth to a child that is out of the line of succession would expect. Sorry. That's the price you pay for being royal. That's the first thing. Every single woman from 1688 until Meghan Markle who gave birth, there was no doubt as to the fact that she had given birth. Meghan isn't entitled to privacy. It's not invading her privacy. It would be invading her privacy if she had cancer or a disease, even an unmentionable disease that would accord with the duality of her name in when she plays Gonorrhegan to her father, King Lear. Yes, under ordinary circumstances, she and every other royal woman is entitled to privacy where their medical records are concerned, but not where giving birth is concerned. Sorry. So, also, Meghan has quite spitefully set about destroying her sister Samantha's ability to earn a livelihood. She has destroyed her, or tried to destroy her father's reputation. She actually, to the best of my knowledge, has not done anything of any great consequence with her brother, but since he has loyalty to his father and sister, I don't see why he would be protecting her, because she's the one who violated their privacy. She's the one who, according to her father, set him up. She's the one who, through her acts of commission and omission, triggered his heart attack, and then 2 heart attacks, and then a stroke. She is the one who has treated him despicably, humiliatingly, callously, and disgustingly in front of the world. And you're criticizing her brother for stating something that actually is revelatory of and is also corroborative of the observations of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. I'm sorry, my dear, I couldn't agree less, but you're entitled to your opinion, and I certainly respect your right to it. Lolita says, Dear Lady C, my question is, could an official document regarding the legitimacy of births be produced unlawfully? Lolita, if you read my book, Meghan and Harry, the Real Story, Persecutors or Victims, you would see that it is very easy. Not only is it possible, but it is very easy for an illegitimate birth to be passed off as a legitimate birth. There are many precedents for it, both past and present. So, as a rule of thumb, the process couldn't be simpler. If the child is born in a hospital, the hospital reports the name of the woman who is registered as the mother and gives birth to the child. And the father is the one who usually goes to the registrar and attests to the fact that the child, his child, was born on such and such a day at such and such a time. No doctors are involved, no nurses, no medical people. It's just a straightforward declaration from the father. Obviously, it's very easy in a situation like that to generate the creation of a legal official document, that is a birth certificate, that is produced totally on the father's information, which might or might not be accurate. I mean, I'll use an example from the past. Lady Diana Manners, when she was born to the then the then Marquis and Marchioness of Granby, they became the Duke and Duchess of Rutland subsequently. But when she was born to Violet, she was still the Marchioness of Granby. And Lord Granby accepted paternity of Lady Diana Manners, notwithstanding the fact that she was the actual daughter of Harry Cust. She was registered as Lady Diana Manners. She was brought up as the Lady Diana Manners. She lived as Lady Diana Manners until she became Lady Diana Cooper. And she died as Lady Diana Cooper. She was never Miss Diana Cust, which is what she would have been had she been officially and had she been legitimately declared illegitimate? I hope that answers the question. It's dead easy. It happens all the time. Susan says, I totally agree with you re the Fayed situation. The time to come forward was when he was alive. Probably not a popular stance, but I support what you said, Lady C. Thank you, Susan. Several of you supported what I said. Several of you understood why I said it. This is all about morality and character. And it's also about decency. But Linda Ball says, don't agree with Lady C on the Al-Fayed topic. Those girls were terrified. Nobody could listen to them and they needed to keep their jobs. Many were too traumatized to make a complaint and thought they would be believed and thought they wouldn't be believed. Don't forget that in 2008, Keir Starmer and his CPS decided not to prosecute Mohammed Al-Fayed when police presented a case. That speaks volumes. Despite his shenanigans being well known, over 100 girls have now come forward. They can't all be wrong. Well, I'm afraid that's not true. When there's a pile-on, sometimes an awful lot of opportunists hop on the bandwagon. Now, I'm not saying all of them have hopped on the bandwagon, but as a principle, I will say, just because there's safety in numbers some of the time doesn't mean that's true all of the time, especially when somebody's going to say, oh, well, I was groped when I was 21 and it's traumatized me for the whole of my life and I need £500,000. Sorry. Plenty of incentive. You can count them in £1 coins, the degree of incentive that there is. And the Crown Prosecution Service would have prosecuted him if there had been sufficient evidence. Mohammed Al-Fayed was extremely unpopular within the establishment. People are acting as if he was popular and powerful. He was unpopular and rich. That's not the same as popular and powerful. People need to understand that you can't rewrite history just because it suits the BBC to do so yet again. Also, how have we brought up a generation or 2 or 3 generations of young women to be so pathetic and lily-livered that when an old man tries to get them into the sack and they refuse him, they're traumatized? Traumatized? Do people even understand what genuine trauma is? I mean, it is truly offensive to think that somebody who is able-bodied and in a position to easily say no and nothing is going to happen to them, that they're traumatized? What world are we living in when people are traumatized by telling some boss no? I did it. I know many other people who did it. Were we traumatized? No. I mean, what utter rubbish. I'm sorry. They were so traumatized they couldn't make a complaint. They could have left the job. There are plenty of jobs around. Those who stayed by their own account. for the glamour and the money. Now they want compensation for being traumatized because he was a dirty old man. Now, if on the odd occasion, and it would have been a very odd occasion, he did something that was truly beyond the pale, that's another matter altogether. But so far, the stories that are coming out, you really have to be very namby-pamby and you have to have been super spoilt in life to actually think that somebody can claim to be traumatized because they were groped by a boss. I mean, in my generation, practically every girl got groped by, if not a boss, by someone else. And we weren't traumatized. So why are they traumatized? And if they are, quite frankly, they're not equipped to lead life and to live a full and productive life. Because life is not all peaches and cream and candy floss. Life requires that you have gumption and character and that you sometimes do the unpopular thing because it's the right thing to do for you and for others. Nobody would listen to them. Well, nobody needed to listen to them. They could have walked with their feet. They didn't have to stay. Sorry. I mean, what sort of world are we living in where we are supposed to be sympathetic to people who are derelict in their duty to themselves? If they're derelict in duty to themselves, how are they going to be anything but derelict in their duty to anybody else? Yes, I know some people love to go on about what bleeding hearts they have and how wonderful they are and how everybody's a victim. Well, everybody might be a victim, but true victims don't ever behave as if they are victims. Never. I've never seen one who did. The people who behave as if they're victims are usually those who are anything but victims. That's been my experience. And I speak as somebody who was handicapped. And I've known loads of people in my life who were handicapped, who were genuine victims, usually of nature or of some tremendously unfortunate incident. Not some old man trying to have a go at them, and now it's worth £500,000. I can tell you something, if it were not worth a penny, you wouldn't be having any of this hue and cry. And hue is the right word to use too. Hugh Edwards, BBC cover-up. And I'm not going to be blinded by what's going on. And you want to think I'm unsympathetic? Please feel free to go right ahead and think so. You're absolutely at liberty to think so. I save my sympathies for those who deserve them, not for those who seek compensation and are actually undermining several civil liberties in this country by allowing the BBC to deflect away from its moral responsibilities to us. Because remember, the BBC is the national broadcasting company. And I'll tell you better, if you don't pay your license fee, you end up in prison. Many old ladies have ended up in prison. let's have a sense of proportion and a sense of responsibility, and let's actually save the bleeding hearts for something else, like something that's really deserving of it. Like maybe the old ladies who couldn't afford their television license but ended up in prison or at least in court. I mean, do you really have any idea of the reality of what goes on in this world? You can't if you've made a comment like this. And I'm sorry if I offend you personally, Linda Ball. It's not really my intention to offend you personally, but these are my sentiments, and you have yours, and I respect your right to have them. These are mine, and I certainly expect my right to have them to be respected as well. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what ground you'd like us to cover. And preferably no more of the Fayed business, please. Okay? Thank you so much. Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye. And as promised, I am going to share today and every other day for the next week or two the blurb about Kids Out, and also show you how, if you would wish to make a contribution, you can. I have been happy to make a contribution. It is a genuine charity. It has a charity number registered with the charity commissioners, and I think it's a wonderful cause. So God bless you. Bye-bye.